Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf, Menachos Daf Nun Zayin. We begin on Nun Vav Amud Beis, 4 lines from the bottom, connecting to yesterday's discussion. One is not allowed to make a mincha chametz. So mincha material, whether the kaimets, whether the leftovers, are meant to be non-chametz. So if one actually makes it into chametz, he's chayev and he gets malchus. Amar Bavli. What if he doesn't mix the yeast into the mincha, just puts it on top? Does that really generate a proper chametz? Is that considered a violation? Is that considered having made chametz to the point that he's liable to malchus? Amar Bavli, hiniach sa'or al gabi isa. So the fellow put the sa'or, which is a leavening agent, on top of the dough instead of inside. Just placed it on the surface. And went and took a seat and watched the mincha turn into chametz on its own, without him actually inputting, without him actually, being actively involved in making the chimutz. When this chametz it happened on its own, chayiv is also chayiv aleh. Where do we find a similar concept? K'masa Shabbos, like on Shabbos. A person places a piece of meat on the coals and walks away. He did no more than just placing it on the coals, and then it gets roasted. He's chayiv. Now, Menachos points out, obviously, taking dough and putting it in the oven to bake is certainly considered a malacha on Shabbos, because there, says Tosfos, the bread gets properly baked. But just placing something on coals doesn't have that same profound, permeating effect. Nevertheless, just like by Shabbos he's chayiv, the same thing with the fellow who made the mincha into chametz by just placing the sa'or on top rather than mixing it inside, he's chayiv. Ask the Gemara, really? But in this type of circumstance on Shabbos, he's not chayiv. Umasa Shabbos ka'gavdim chayiv? Is that really true that if you would do a similar masa, just placing the meat on the coals, ka'gavdim, this type of arrangement chayiv, would it be liable on Shabbos? We don't think so. V'amar Rabba Bar Bar Chana, he quoted Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan, hiniach basar gabi chalam. Okay, this exact case, a fellow places meat on the coals. He's not automatically chayav. It depends. He has to turn it over to facilitate a proper roast, so the fire reaches all sides. If he turns it over from one side to the other, chayav, then he's chayav, because the entire piece of meat from side to side was cooked, was roasted. Lo yefach boy pater. If he just leaves it as is, doesn't turn it over, he's pater. And here we're saying just merely placing the sar on the isa and leaving it alone would be chayev. Amar Rava, my chayev nami deka amar kemas klishol Shabbos. Sure, on Shabbos, he wouldn't be chayev unless he properly, attends to the piece of meat on all sides. Because otherwise, it's not considered a properly cooked piece of meat. We're going to see soon. The Gemara will explain why. Because we're talking that it doesn't really cook properly. It's only a third cooked. It's called Kemachal ben Drusoi, like the robber. His name was ben Drusoi. He would just eat his meat very, like raw, half raw, rare. He was always in a rush. So, just getting it to that point on one side doesn't suffice. It has to be through and through. If it's properly cooked, yeah, even one side works, but if it's just barely cooked, then it has to be through and through. That's the halacha, to be considered a proper cook. But that's by Shabbos. But by chametz, says Rashi, the mere placement of the sa'or on the surface already has a profound effect on it permeates the entire dough, and it makes it chametz, and therefore it's chayav. So just as a proper tzli, a proper roast on Shabbos is chayav, likewise over here, merely placement is chayav as well. Let's go back to this halach and review it. Okay, it's on Shabbos. He placed the basar on the coals. Hifech chayav, right? Hifech by potter. So he's only chayav if he was mahapech, if he flipped it from side to side, and the entire piece of meat from side to side was processed. Now, what exactly happened? Why is this a precondition for liability? What's Rabbi Yechanan's lesson here? If without flipping it, it would not properly cook, and pshita, obviously it's not chayiv. We would just know that on our own, it's obvious. Oh, so perhaps we're speaking that even without flipping it, it would still cook. So why is he not chayiv? If he doesn't flip it, it's a malach. It's richa. It must be speaking like this. It's going to get partially affected. If you wouldn't flip it from side to side, so the side that's facing the flame would get affected, but slightly. Like we learned before, the level of macham and which is a third cooked. Technically it's considered mevushal, but it's not a proper cook. So now when he flips it, the other side as well gets affected in the same manner. It reaches the point of macham and risoy. And the point of Rabbi Yechon is to teach us that only in this manner, when it's fully macham and risoy, is it considered a bishul. So again, if it's properly cooked, even one side would suffice, but if it's just barely, has to be through and through to be considered a proper cooking. The kamash from the point of the halacha was, if it's merely on one side, kamacham and risoy, only a third cooked, like klumu. It's not reckoned with. Amarava, so Rava adds, however, if it was properly nitzle, properly roasted, properly edible, Rashi said tzliya gemura, fully roasted, even on one side, even in one spot, if it's kigroi geres, the size, the volume of a dried fig, which is the volume that determines a malacha on Shabbos, if he processed food to this extent, this volume is considered a malacha. Therefore, he's chayav. Amalei Ravina Ravashi. Why are you specifying that it has to be a gergeris volume of meat in one spot? That's only if it's in one spot, one contiguous, piece of meat. Let's say it's dispersed. A little bit here, a little bit here. If you would combine it, you get the required volume. Does that work? You mean to say it doesn't? We have a Mishnah elsewhere regarding Malach on Shabbos. You could combine to get you to the desired total. Hakadech kol shu chayev. One sort of makes a hole, a drill. A teeny hole is chayev. Now, what happened here? You just made one spot. Kol shul ma'chazi. What benefit does he have from a little hole? He can't use it. So why is that a malacha? It's not a functional, endeavor. Oh, apparently the Mishnah is speaking that he drilled a little here, a little there, a little there. The chazal tziruf. That, and the reason why it's chayiv, even though each individual hole on its own is really not functional, but you can combine them. She explains that the carpenters, when they had to make a big hole, apparently they didn't have these big bits like we have today, so they would drill 3 holes next to each other and then sort of open them into each other, and he'd get himself a big hole. So there's a combined goal here, combined purpose, and that's why he's chayiv. Okay, so clearly the Mishnah is speaking that you can be chayiv for just little holes, provided they're next to each other, because of the tziruf factor, because you can combine them. So the same should be regarding roasting a piece of meat. If you did a little spot, properly roasted, another little spot, properly roasted, you can be mitzaref them to get you to the gergeris shir and have him be chayiv. No, you're right on the Mishnah of the drill. It's not really. Perhaps they were speaking that he made just one single solitary teeny hole. As per your question, what's the purpose? What's the benefit? The chazal bavli aklida. It's good for a keyhole. The lashon shemafteach, the tip of the tooth of the key can fit in there, and you can use it to open and close the door. There's another version of this halach. So according to this version, Rava maintains that the shear of roasting a gorgeris of meat only works if it's one in one location, one gorgeris in the same spot. However, there's another version of Amarava. You could combine several, spots of roasted meat and sort of get you to the total of gorgeris and have them be chayiv. Rashi, I'll prove your case from the Mishnah. We have the same in the Mishnah. It drills this little teeny hole. Is chayiv. Hey chidami, what happened here? If it's just one spot, what's this teeny hole, a kosher? What's that going to serve him? Apparently, he did a couple of holes next to each other, which can be combined to serve a common purpose. So you see that combining is a valid approach when it comes to determining the quantity of a malacha on Shabbos. Same with the meat. No, says the Gemara, you can't really prove. Perhaps over there was speaking that he made one single hole in one spot, the Talmud Bavli, which is useful for the key. But who says that you can, combine otherwise? Okay, so now we sort of veered off a little bit into halachas of cooking on Shabbos. So the epitome is properly roasted, right? Legamre. And a sheer gorgeris would be chayiv. Can you combine to get you the gorgeris? That's the two versions that we have. One sheet of Rava says so, other version says no. And if it's merely partially roasted, like Machab and Risoy, in that case, Rabbi Yechon says he's still chayiv provided that it goes through and through from one side to the other of the piece of meat. Tan Rabbanu. So back now to the halacha of refraining from making the mincha chametz. So we have the pasuk. Let's read the pasuk first. Kol mincha shatakriv l'Hashem. All the mincha that you're going to be markev to Hashem lo yisiasa chametz. It can't be made chametz, right? Ki chal soyer chal dvash lo yisaktiru. Remember Yishal Hashem, because soyer, which is chametz, and honey, sweets, cannot be brought on the mizbeach. The Gemara will analyze this pasuk and teach us a total of 4 halachis. Tan Rabban, ilu nemar shatakriv l'Hashem lo yisiasa chametz. If the pasuk would merely say, anything which you are makriv to Hashem, don't make chametz. Instead of saying kol mincha, ashatikru Hashem, at that point I would say ein li b'lo yisasei chametz al chametz b'lvad. The isra of making chametz only pertains to the part that's ashatikru Hashem, which goes on his back, which is the chametz. What about the entire mincha? Mincha b'nayin, tamulay mincha. That's why the pasuk says kol mincha. So even the mincha, before the chametz was separated, is already covered by the Isra. Now, this pasuk is speaking about a specific mincha, minchas marcheshes, or deep fried mincha. So how do we know that this prohibition applies to all menachos equally? Shar menachos b'nai tamud loymar kol ha-mincha, kol is full coverage, all menachos. Now the pasuk says ashatikriv l'Hashem. We learn from there ksheir le'psula. The Isra of chimutz is specific to a mincha which is fit, which is suitable for akrova, as opposed to a mincha which became pasal. Let's say left the area, it was pasal, because of yaitse. Then there's no isra of chimutz. Mikan amru. So based on this we learn hamach mitzas akshera chayiv. If one takes a mincha kshera which is suitable for akrova, it makes a chametz chayiv, but not if it's pasal. Vas apsula pat. By Rapapa comes Rapapa with a question. Suppose he takes a proper mincha chimtza, makes it into chametz. So that in itself, it disqualifies the mincha from further use, right? Then he took it out of the vicinity, he took it out of the Beis HaMikdash. And then, when it was back, he made it chametz again, which means to say, he processed it and he continued the, developing the chametz, forming it, etc., like we learned yesterday. Now, what's the status of the second person? Kivan the yatzasa, if sila lo, shall we say, look, once it left the premises, it was affected by yaitse, became pasul. So it was relabeled as a mincha psula. So now when the fellow comes back and adds the chimutz, he's not chayiv because he was dealing with disqualified material, which had left the Beis HaMikdash and then came back. He wouldn't be chayiv for adding the chimutz because it was pasul. Or we can say, no, that exemption wouldn't apply in this case. You know why? Because this mincha underwent several stages. It was made into chametz, and then it left the area. Now, technically, once it was made into chametz, it's already pasul. So it's already pasul. It's not going to get affected and made more pasul by leaving the area. So in terms of the cause of the first psul, which is chimutz, we already know that adding to it and developing to it is chayev. You know, if you take a mincha which is pasul for another reason and you make it chametz, you're pater, as we just concluded. But taking a mincha and turning it into chametz and then developing that chametz further, the second fellow was chayev, even though he was dealing with a mincha which was chametz and already pasul, because it was chametz, because the psul, the cause is the chametz. And the Torah clearly stipulates that any stage of developing that mincha, which is chametz, is chayev. We don't say, well, it's a mincha psula, you're pater. We don't say that. It doesn't have that exemption. So perhaps here as well. Or given the chimtza once, he made it chametz to begin with, it's already pasul for akrava. Psul yoytel mahani, so it wasn't really adversely affected by leaving the area. So we sort of ignore that event. We simply view it as a mincha which is chametz. No, what happens to a mincha which is chametz? And then when you add the chimetz to that mincha again, certainly is chayev, mechametz, achar mechametz. Like we learned yesterday, take it, we leave it unresolved. Interesting question. By Rav Mari. Here comes another question. Chimtza b'reish sham mizbeach. So he took the kaimetz of a proper mincha, brought it to the mizbeach, and it's now on top, about to be burnt on the fire. And then he made a chametz right then and there. Ma, what's the status? Pasuk says asher takriv amar Rachman. Pasuk says mincha which is asher takriv, which you're going to be offering on the mizbeach, that shouldn't be turned into chametz. But this is done. It's already up there. Akrava. You already accomplished that. So perhaps there's no longer a liability. Or you can say, no, it's not yet done. It was delivered to the location, but it wasn't yet burnt in the mizbeach. It's still lacking that, missing that step. The fact that it's not yet been burnt, it's missing a significant step in the process. So it's not considered like it's already there. And the pasuk of asher takriv, which you're going to be makrib, still applies to this, because it's still before the fact, and therefore if you make it chametz, it's chayev, take it again, we leave it standing unresolved. Continues the Gemara. Okay. So once we know from the words kol mincha that the Isra of chimutz applies not just to the kaimetz, it applies to the entire mincha before the kmitza as well. So then why does the pasuk have to add asher takrivu, which sort of alludes to only the part that's going on the mizbeach? If we say chimutz applies to everything, so what's the point of asher takrivu lamali? What's the point of those words? Says the Gemara, it's needed for something else. Look at the sanya, it's needed for the next price, which begins with these words, asher takriv. What's it adding? L'rabis menachos nesachem l'chimutz. So, you know, your standard mincha has two parts. The kaimetz on the mizbeach and the shirayim to the kohanim. What about minchas which don't necessarily have these two phases? Minchas nesachem, for instance. That's the mincha which accompanies a korban. It's completely burnt on the mizbeach. Nothing goes to the kohanim. So perhaps chimutz doesn't apply there. No, asher takrivu, even a mincha which is completely burnt on the mizbeach, like the minchas nesachem, is also covered by the isur, don't make it chametz. Divrei, whose sheet is there? Rabbi Yitzchak. So he says minchas nesachem. Rabbi Kiva Omer, he says something else. L'rabis lechem apanim l'chimutz. The pasuk here is adding lechem apanim. So although there's no act of kmitza on the lechem apanim, right? The breads are placed on the shulchan with the levina, which is then put on the mizbeach. There's no kmitza, something being separated from the actual breads. So it's lacking that element. There's nothing of it that's technically going on the mizbeach. Nevertheless, it's covered by the issur of chimutz, and again, that's covered by the pasuk asher takriv. So, just for clarity, again, Rabbi Kiva refers the pasuk to lechem apanim, Rabbi Yitzchak to the minchas nesachem. Ask the Gemara, minchas nesachem, how could you say, according to Rabbi Yitzchak, is the issa of chametz on minchas nesachem, how would it become chametz? May Peir is saying. There's no water in there. It's mixed with oil. May Peir means like fruit juice, water, liquid is used, so it wouldn't become umay Peir amid beis, umay Peir machmitzin. We know that doesn't facilitate chimutz. It doesn't make the dough rise. So what would be the problem? Amar Shlokish answers the Gemara. His opinion was that menachos nesachem, although technically it doesn't require anything other than oil, you could actually mix a little water in there, it's okay. So that would be the instance, that would be the setting where there's a chametz concern. Okay, ask the Gemara on the other shita now. So going to Rabbi Akiva, we covered lechem hapanim, watch it from becoming chametz. Ask the Gemara, how could you say that there's an isra of making lechem hapanim chametz? The isra only applies to material which is deemed, carbon material. But lechem hapanim never got that status while it was being processed, until it was actually put on the shulchan, which is a kli sharis, then it becomes kaddish. Until that point, they would use, containers which weren't kaddish. The Gemara soon calls it klei hayavish. Containers which are meant to measure up and deal with dry materials. They're not kaddish in the base. Even though, so that mincha, that lechem hapanim was not yet kaddish throughout the process until it was placed on the shulchan. So why are we warning you against making it chametz, which only applies to mincha material, to carbon material, which has kedusha, which the lechem hapanim doesn't have while it's being, processed and baked? Ask the Gemara, lechem hapanim midas yavashi. Lechem hapanim was processed using containers for dry materials. V'shamane l'Rabbi Akiva, and we know that Rabbi Akiva holds the Amar midas yavash l'niskacha. Midas yavash didn't have kedusha, so the material wasn't yet deemed susceptible to chimutz. So why is it covered by the isra of chimutz? Shalach Rabin, Mishmei Rabbi Yechon, he explains like this: Kachi hatzor shel Mishnah, ve'eifach. Let me give you the correct version of the brisa. Let's flip around the names. So now Rabbi Akiva, in fact, is in line with his opinion, because instead of Rabbi Akiva referring to lechem hapanim, which we just concluded is no concern according to him, he refers to the minchas nesachim as a concern. Whereas according to Rabbi Glili, the lechem hapanim is a concern, because according to him, even midas yavesh has kedusha, and lechem hapanim has kedusha while it's being processed. Hence, the chimutz concern. So ve'efach, again, we flip around the names. Brisa begins with asher takrivu, which is coming to add, to expand the isra of chimutz onto something else. So either it's l'rabis lechem hapanim l'chimutz, that's who divrei Rabbi Glili, Rakiva oimer l'rabis minchas nesachim l'chimutz. Okay, so now we reconciled this issue. V'az the Rabbi Yechon tamet. Now Rabbi Yechon taught us that according to Rabbi Glili, midos of yavesh have kedusha. Unlike Rabbi Akiva who says it doesn't, he says it does. So Rabbi Yechon is in line with his statement elsewhere, which was Damar Rabbi Yechanan, that Rabbi Glili, who holds that midas yavesh has kedusha, and another chacham ve'echad, one of the students of Rabbi Yishmael, his name was Rabbi Yashia, also held that view. Ve'echad talmid Rabbi Yishmael, they both concurred on the same point. Umani, who was the other person? Rabbi Yashia. The Sani, where do we find Rabbi Yashia's opinion that klei yavesh have kedusha? So the pasuk speaks about when they sanctified the kalim in the midbar, he anointed them, made them kaddish, and in turn they affect their content and make them kaddish as well. Which utensils? Liquid ones or the dry ones? Rabbi Yashia, midas halach, the ones that deal with liquids, nimshach bein mibifnim, bein bachutz, was anointed inside and out, as kedusha on both sides. But midas yavesh, nimshach mifnim ve'nimshach bachutz. By yavesh was only inside, not outside, but it has kedusha, which fits with Rabbi Glili, who also says midas yavesh has kedusha. Let's continue the brayso. Rabbi Yonasan Aimer, he disagrees. He says like Rabbi Akiva, right? That the midas yavesh has no kedusha at all. Midas halach nimshach mibifnim ve'nimshach bachutz. When it comes to midas halach, that's meant to hold liquids, that has kedusha inside, but not on the backside, the outside. Midas yavesh, by yavesh, there's no kedusha at all. I'll even prove it to you. Teidulcha says, Rabbi Yonasan, that midas yavesh have no kedusha. Teidulcha sharei ein mekadeshes, because we know that the midas yavesh, the ones meant to handle, flour and all that, had no kedusha. Because when it comes to the carbon of the two breads, this is the shtei alechem, brought on Shavuos, the pasuk reads, "Mimosh ve'seichem taviu lechem tenufa," right? Bring your bread. Shtayim, shnei esroinim, soilos tiyana chametz te'afena. And then after the baking, it calls it bikurim laHashem, an offering to Hashem. Why only after the baking? Apparently that's when it gets kedusha, because that's when it was put into the holy oven, which we gave it kedusha. But until that point, all the handling with the kalim did not give it kedusha, because midas hayavish have no kedusha. Amos saying Hashem, when is it designated and labeled as Lashem? Only lachashenefa after the baking process, but not before. So according to Rabbi Yonasan, klei hayavish have no kedusha at all. According to Rabbi Yashia, they do. They do on the inside, not on the outside. But Mike, what's this dispute rooted in? Well, it's in the pasuk. The pasuk says, "Vayimshachem mekadosh oisam." He was mekadosh them. Them is excluding something else. What is it coming to rule out? Rabbi Yeshua Savar oisam means lemutim midas yavish bachutz. That these kelos the pasuk speaking about, the midas halach, the ones that are meant to handle the liquids, are kadosh inside and out. But by midas hayavish, only the inside, not the outside. So there is kedusha, but only on the inside. That's Rabbi Yashi's opinion. Rabbi Yonasan Savar, he takes a different route. Midas yavish chaylu, v'litzru cholimute. He says midas hayavish. There's no reason to think they're kaddish. Torah doesn't have to, rule them out. Yisru cholimute midas lachem bachutz. The pasuk is excluding even by midas halach, the liquid containers, that only the interior is kaddish, but not the outside. So Rabbi Yochanan lined up, Rabbi Saglili with Rabbi Yashia. They both held midas hayavish have kedusha. Now, why did he not line up Rabbi Akiva with Rabbi Yonasan, who both hold that midas hayavish have no kedusha? Le'manabi could have also said that Rabbi Akiva ve'echad, and one of the students of Rabbi Shmuel, which is Rabbi Yonasan, ve'echad Rabbi Shmuel amud ve'echad, they both concurred on the same point. Umani, who is that person, Rabbi Yonasan? That midas hayavish have no kedusha. Why didn't he line them up? The answer is because there's some discrepancy between the two. True, they're both on the same page regarding midas hayavish, that has no kedusha, but by midas halach there's a difference. Mishum deloy shavu midas lach legaladadi. They don't fully agree with each other regarding the status of midas halach, because according to Rabbi Yonasan, it has kedusha on the inside, not the outside. According to Rabbi Akiva, later on Daf Tzadik, we'll see the midas halach will kaddish inside and out. So there's a difference, and therefore they're not really fully lined up. Okay. So let's just refresh a little bit. We had a pasuk Ashet HaKrivu, an extra phrase covering some added scenario, some extra type of offering, and instructing us to avoid chimutz there as well. Either it was meant to avoid mechas nesachim, or the lechem apanim. And we concluded the only reason why there would be a concern by lechem apanim is because it already has kedusha. How would it have kedusha? If you hold that the dry materials, as the flowers, etc., become kaddish through the midas hayavish. But otherwise, if midas hayavish don't have kedusha and don't endow kedusha on their content, there's no concern by lechem apanim, because it's not yet kaddish until it's fully baked, which is past any chimutz, attempts. I have a question, says Rav Papa Tabai. You're right, dry containers perhaps don't pose a concern. But what about the bisa, the bowl in which they mix the flour and they prepare the dough for lechem apanim? That's technically liquid material. Okay? And so once it gets to that point, and it was placed in a bowl which is meant to hold and process liquids, certainly the dough becomes kaddish. So back to square one. You're right. If it would come into contact with the bisa, they'd all agree there's a problem because it's already kaddish, and if you make it... We're speaking that he avoided the bisa. He just mixed the flour on some sort of piece of, like a skin, a hide, some sort of flat area, which was not a kli. Okay, so he used some sort of mat, which does not give the lechem kedusha. Yachi says, well, if that's the case, that the determining factor is whether he mixed it in a bowl or on a mat. So let's backstep a little bit. Rabbi Yonasan made his point that Kli Yavish are not going to be Mekadesh, and he proved it from the Shtei Alechem. That was his right. Shtei Alechem are not really Kaddish until they're baked. Apparently, up until that point, they have no Kedusha because Klei HaYavish, the dry container, I mean the containers that are meant to deal with dry materials, are not Kaddish, not Mekadesh. But maybe the pasuk speaking, maybe really Klei Yavish is Mekadesh, okay? So the Isaran container of the Beis HaMikdash has Kedusha. Maybe it does. The reason why there's Shtei Alechem in this instance is not Kaddish, because it happens that they avoided the Isaran, the container which is Kaddish. They decided to use a private Isaran, a private container, circumstantially. So they avoided any contact, any interaction with the Klei Sharis. And that's why the pasuk speaks about it being unholy until the baking process. So you haven't really proven anything from here in terms of what the status of a Kli Yavish in the Beis HaMikdash is. Maybe it has Kedusha, but in this case they didn't use it. Just like Lechem HaPanim, you tell me they avoided the Bisa, so perhaps over here they avoided the Kli Yisari. Yachid, the Kamal Rabbi Yisrael turned to Rabbi Yashi, and he says, I'll prove to you Kli Yavish has no Kedusha from the story of the Shtei Alechem. The pasuk regards them as non-Kedusha. Lema, he could have responded, going to Chayla, but Yisar and the Chayla was speaking circumstantially. They measured it up with a privately owned Yisar. And that's why it's not Kaddish. Says the Gemara, it's unlikely. Hachi Hashta. How could you suggest that? Because Bishlam Mebisa Lekas Rachmana. I understand when it comes to a bowl, Torah doesn't instruct us to use a holy bowl. You don't have to use a bowl. There's no way in the Torah that you have to use a bowl to make lisha, to mix the dough. Okay, so you can just as well use a mat. So we used a mat for the lisha, there's no issue, and that's what happened. So it wasn't yet Kaddish. Eli Yisara, but in the case of the Shtei Alechem, you need to measure it up in a Yisara. And since the Torah instructs us to make a Yisara, you have to get the right measurement, you have to have a proper Yisara to know how big your mincha is. It's got to be a Yisara measurement in the Beis HaMikdash. So it's unlikely you would have sidestepped the holy one and used your private one. That's unlikely. Shavak Yisara, the Kodesh, he would just neglect the sanctified Yisara, the sanctified container which is ready, made for this purpose, V'chayil B'Yisara and the Chayil, and use a Chayil Yisara. That wouldn't be a proper approach. So we presume they used the Yisara of the Beis HaMikdash. And if the Torah still considers the Shtei Alechem to be Chayil until baking, apparently the reason is because Yisara, which is a Klei HaYavish, is not Mekadesh. Okay, so let's just recap. We have the various halachas regarding being mechametz at mincha. It applies to the kaimetz, it applies to the whole mincha. Even before the kmitza took place, yesterday we learned about the shiraim as well. It only applies to mincha which is kosher, and it applies to all types of menachos. Ashat akriva comes to add minchas nesachim according to one opinion, or minchas lechem apanim according to the other opinion. And this sort of got us into the whole discussion regarding which kelim have kedusha. All agree b'das halach have kedusha, b'das hayavish is a machlekes. Tana Rabbanan. Okay, we sort of veer off into a slightly different topic now, which is actually rooted in the same pasuk but unrelated to chimutz. See, the pasuk says, "Kol hamincha shetakriv LaHashem lo si'aseh chametz." And then it says, "Ki chol sor v'chol dvash lo saktiru mimenu ishel Hashem." From these last words, this last phrase, saktiru mimenu, we learn that leftovers cannot be put on the mizbeach. They have no place on the mizbeach. So, a carbon from which something was removed and put on the mizbeach, like the kaimetz of a mincha, or the dam of a carbon, or the chaylev of a carbon, now the leftover material cannot be placed on a mizbeach. There's a special law forbidding that. Shiraim off the mizbeach. Tanu Rabbanan, Menayin lamalam b'sar chatas, b'sar oshem, b'sar kachei kadashim. What if a fellow takes the basar, the flesh, leftover flesh, or chatas of the oshem of kachei kadashim, or mikachim kal, u'meisra oimer, leftovers of the oimer mincha after the kmitza was put on the mizbeach, u'meisra shtei alechem, u'melachem apanim, she'or menachos, all these leftovers, materials which are meant to be consumed by kehanim, etc. He puts it on the mizbeach. He violated a lav. Shubaloi says, how do we know it's a lav? Tamalayma, that pasuk. Ki chol so'or v'chodvash. Lo yisaktiru mimenu ishal Hashem. We learn, mimenu ishal Hashem. If something had been separated from it to the mizbeach, whatever's left behind, lo yisaktiru, you may not put on the mizbeach. Leftovers don't belong on the mizbeach. Kol shu mimenu ishim, any material, any carbon, from which something was taken to the mizbeach, so the leftovers, harayu b'taktiru applies to that, and you can't put it on the mizbeach. Ask the Gemara, but on your list, you have shtei alechem, you have lechem aponim. There's no kmitza. There's nothing technically separated from these and put on the mizbeach. So why is it covered by the same pasuk? It's not something which is mimenu leishim. V'yishtei alechem v'lechem aponim yesh men leishim. Do you take anything from these and put on the mizbeach? By the time you have a brayso regarding a different halacha, yotzu shtei alechem v'lechem aponim she'emem leishim. No, these two items have no contribution to the mizbeach. Rav Sheshes saying megufa leishim. You're 100% right. There's nothing broken off, from the shtei alechem and put on the mizbeach, or from the lechem aponim. In that sense, it's different than a mincha, which has a kmitza, which is taken on the mizbeach, and then you have leftovers left behind. Here, you don't have that. Nevertheless, there is a component of leishim. There is something of this package, of the shtei alechem package, of the lechem aponim package, which goes on the mizbeach, and is considered a sort of representative of the broader carbon of the shtei alechem or lechem aponim, and it's considered as though you took part of them and put it on the mizbeach. Like what? Like by the shtei alechem, it comes with the sheep, the two kvasim which we discussed, the shlamims. And since part of those kvasim, the chelav, are put on the mizbeach, it is considered like the shtei alechem have contributed to the mizbeach as well. Same with the lechem aponim. Even though technically you don't rip off a piece of bread, but it comes with levoina, and that is put on the mizbeach. So lechem aponim is not considered as though it contributed something to the mizbeach, and it's considered leftovers, and covered by this pasuk of kol shem mimenu leishim, harayu b'al taktir. Okay, Hashem will pick it up tomorrow. All the best to you, and that's Lochara.